Okay, just starting now. 1 second. It's just starting. There we go. I think we're on. Okay, that's recording. Okay, cool. So hello everyone, and tonight we are going to be speaking to Nico Minetti. And Nico Minetti, welcome to the MTT podcast.
Thank you, Richard.
Yeah, great to be here. So yes, Nico, you are someone who has experience in Wall Street. You've been involved in day trading, trading stocks, and these kinds of things. And obviously, our topic today, what we're going to be discussing, is the Gamestop short squeeze. This thing that's been in the news, people buying stocks and market manipulation and all types of exciting things.
Yeah.
So let's just start with what. So if you can give us a description of yourself, I've said you've got a Wall Street background, but what do you
Sure.
do and what have you done and how did you find yourself related to all of this?
Sure. So I'm not going to claim any advanced expertise in being amazing at extracting money from the stock market. But it has always been a major interest of mine. And in a strange way, even though I always hated math, I thought a lot of this was boring. I found it fascinating that there's a game out there that if you get good at it, you can make more money than all the people who have to work. And you get to play dress up and wear nice suits and go in big buildings and with gold letters and you get to look down at all the people who will never have as good a life as you because you are good at this game. However, and so I was like, how do you play this fucking game? Because I'm interested. Because I want to, I was never content with the life that, I was lucky in many ways, but I was never content with my station in life. And I saw attaining a great deal of money as my way to find freedom. I realize now that freedom's what I've really been chasing. And really just there's psychological reasons that made me think money's what I need. But I don't want to get too deep into that. But what I'll tell you is that curiosity paired with that intense desire to make something of myself and seeing that as the most likely path to do it, led to me taking several jobs throughout the course of my life that I didn't really want to work. I didn't enjoy them. They were very, in many ways, demeaning and exhausting and underpaid and crazy, But I did it because I really wanted to master this skill set and figure out how to make money. So I do have years of experience going in and out of some different industries, from like credit to loans, selling loans like cash advances, some of the sketchier, really high interest deals that really this stuff exists for very interesting reasons because it's all created by people who see opportunities, and then the way the government moderates that and creates opportunities for new ways to make money creates these strange niche industries that you can find yourself in. And you can find yourself on the phone all day calling people, trying to sell them something that you may not even like. But it's through that repetition that you realize that this is how the system works. Is there's some really smart people, and really they're smart in a specific way. They're not necessarily geniuses at everything, but people who understand that if money goes out and more money comes back, and you figure out a way to do that on a wide scale, it just never ends. You can continue to make more and more money with the more money you have. And so I found myself, and maybe you want to skip kind of ahead to this because this is really the most relevant stuff, but I found myself going from being a law school dropout to working on Wall Street. And the way I got my job on Wall Street was I literally went to the building I wanted to work at in my best suit, wearing a resume that was the size of my chest or bigger. And I just stood there until I got a job. And it worked after months of trying to apply online and through emails and calls and all that. But I was like, the spirit of Wall Street is that hustler, show up, find that money. So there's got to be at least one person on this fucking street that thinks like that. And if I show up, they'll find me. So it worked. And I found myself working for this firm run by these Jewish millionaire lenders, basically. And I learned a lot about the financial industry from the inside and how not glamorous it is. And it gave me enough of an understanding to know that when this big squeeze is what I would call it, the big squeeze, like The Big Short, when this happened, I recognized it as a very unique opportunity to give that all a proper shot. Now that I had a little money saved up, I had my bailout check, like a lot of people, stimulus money. I had a lot of time here at home in quarantine, and I had 2 monitors. So I said, what the hell? Let's start trading, and let's give it a real shot to directly try to become one of those guys who figures out how to make money trading. And started off very humbly, just doing a few trades on my phone, escalated to the point where it's become my job, where I'm all day long, I'm doing this, and I'm on forums, and I'm in these like Discord servers with different groups of traders, just doing the equivalent of what they would have done on Wall Street back in the day, where you're all talking to each other, coming up with ideas. Like, it's this frantic, high-paced thing that it's really cool to see that still exists. It just isn't on Wall Street anymore. So what's going on right now is very, very interesting. To understand it, you have to understand something called short selling. So short selling is a weird thing that doesn't exist in the real world, but does exist in the world of finance. And you will find that some really exotic, interesting inventions have been made in the world of finance. And then you will be very shocked to see how much money is in those inventions and not actually in the economy and not actually even in the shares. It's all things derived from the movement of assets and how those, that's where the word derivatives comes from, by the way, how those things relate to the asset they're tied to. And predicting the movement of those assets in the cause and effect chain is kind of what it is. It's bets on that. So here's what short selling is. If I work at a hedge fund, say, and it's my job to identify ways to make money, I might look at a business that I think is going to fail. And if I want to make a bet that this business will fail, and when it does, I will profit, I can do something called short selling. So I would go to you, Richard, say you own 100 shares of AMC, right? I want to short those shares. So what I do is I buy shares that I don't have, right? And let me rephrase that. It's very easy to mess this up. Let me rephrase that. So I take shares that I don't have and I sell them to you. Say you want to buy AMC. I sell it to you, but I don't actually have the shares. I sell it to you at a set price, and then whatever price it's at, I have to buy it at. to give it back to you. Fuck, let me start that one more time.
No, don't worry. I think this is one of the reasons we brought you in, is that everyone is trying to get their heads around
It's like
how a
in The
short
Big
works.
Short. You know how they say, don't feel bad if it sounds confusing, because it is, and it's intentional, because it makes you think you're not smart enough to figure it out. But I'm sure these geniuses on Wall Street know what they're doing. They're not
Yeah.
just gambling. They're geniuses.
No,
So,
no, yeah.
but what I found, Richard, is it doesn't make sense till you're doing it. Like,
Mm.
until you're actually making or losing money off attempting it, it will not really make sense to you. Because I studied for the Series 7 for months. I took the test. So, I tried to learn what options were, and it still hardly made sense to me. Now that
Mm.
I trade options, I get it, right? But
Mm.
what they did
Mm.
is they made a bet that the price of the shares of specific companies would fall. They need to come up with a set number of shares that they, quote, borrowed, right, and sold to someone else when it was at a different price.
Mm.
So by, say, tomorrow, I think AMC is going to be worth, say, $2, and it's trading at 3. If I'm right, I made $1, right? Because I was able to sell it for more than I got it from you for. So
Mm.
anything above that, though, if it goes up instead of down, I'm forced to pay whatever the price is to buy the shares and give them to you on that date, right?
Mm. Mm. Mm.
So these guys looked at companies like AMC, like GameStop, that are pummeled because of the pandemic and
Mm.
because of, various reasons, but really it's things out of their control.
Mm.
They looked at it and they said, hey, here's an opportunity. These guys are fucked. Let's short the shares, and we're going to just make money, not having to do anything.
Mm.
As long as shit just continues to be bad, we're gonna keep making money.
Mm.
What they didn't count on and couldn't have possibly realized might happen is on the website Reddit, which there's subreddits and there's groups of investors. Group of
Mm.
investors recognize an opportunity here, because looking at the numbers they saw, certain shares had been shorted in a big way. We're
Mm.
talking 50, 75, 80% of the float, 140% of the float. And the float is like shares that can be traded, right? So
Mm.
there's more shares being short sold than are available to even buy. It doesn't
Right.
make any sense that you're allowed to do that, but they were. So these people on Reddit are looking at this and they're like, wait, so if the price was higher than what they thought it would be, they lose money, right? Yeah, and the
Yes.
price is really low right now. So what if we all just bought it at the same time? Wouldn't the price go up? Well, yeah. And if it keeps going up, wouldn't they then have to buy the shares? Yeah.
Mm.
And when they buy
Mm.
the shares, doesn't that make the price go up more? Yeah.
Yeah.
So wouldn't they have to keep buying the shares? And the higher it got, the more they had to pay. And the more they had to pay, the more money we make, because that's the deal they made. That's their bed. They have
Right.
to sleep in it. That's called a short squeeze, right?
Short squeeze. Okay, wait, hold on. Wait.
Yeah,
So I just want to go back. So
sure.
let's because I think we've done a good description of how where things got to where they are. So with GameStop, the stock price and it flying up, and the role that the Reddit groups played. So let's just go over again on the short. So the short is I have 100 shares, or I have a number of shares in GameStop, let's say. Um, and you are the short seller. You want to do this shorting thing. So
Mm-hmm.
this is at least my understanding. You come to me, you buy the shares from me, 10 shares, let's say, and you buy them at $10, and then you are you then immediately sell the shares on the market. Is that right? And
No,
then
that would make sense, Richard.
no,
No,
no.
that would
Okay.
make sense. That's not it. No, I don't buy them from you. I borrow them from you and I sell
You
them
borrow them.
and I bring
You
them
borrow them
back.
from me, and
So I
then
say, Richard, just
okay,
let me borrow those shares, dude. They're just sitting there. You're
okay.
not going to use them.
So you
So I
borrow
give you
them.
some money to let me borrow it, right? I'm like,
Okay,
let me
okay,
borrow it. Here's $5, right?
okay.
Actually, say it's just $5. I don't know. It all is based on what people think's going to happen. But yeah, so you make a little money by letting me borrow your shares.
Okay, so I own interest. So I own interest, basically.
Yeah,
Some
all
interest.
you care about is that I bring you back your shares and I give you the money I paid you for letting me borrow them.
Okay, okay,
So
got you.
you let me
So,
borrow and
so
I
now you
sell them.
borrow, you've got the shares. You've got the shares now, and then you wait for the price to go down, or what do you do? Do you just hold the shares and wait for the price to go down?
So I go to you, I say, Richard, you're not doing anything with those shares. Let me borrow them. You let me borrow them. I give you some money for letting me borrow them. I
Mhm.
say, by this date, right? Say by February 10th, I will give you back 100 shares, right? Because
Okay.
you let me borrow 100 shares. I will give you back your shares. All right.
Ah,
So
okay.
now, as soon as February, say 5th, maybe the price dropped. So I buy 100 shares from the same idiot who bought them from me when they were up here, and then
Mhm.
I give them back to you, and I get to
Okay.
keep the difference because I
Right.
sold them when they were worth more. I bought them back when they were worth less. I gave them back to you then, and everybody
Mhm.
wins. You make some
Right.
money, I make some money, but here's the thing. What
Okay. Got
the
it. Got it. Got it. Got it. So that's a short. That's a short. Is this manipulation? So you borrowing the shares, I give I make some money of interest. You go on the market and play it in a way that when the price goes down, you can end up with more shares to give back to me, but the price difference will mean that you would have made some money.
I don't have more shares. I just was able to flip them. I
Hmm.
brought you back the same amount of shares, but I sold them
Hmm.
and bought them back. So I sold
Hmm.
them when it was high, bought them back when it was low. You get your
Hmm.
shares back. I keep the change.
Got you. Got you. That's it.
Does it make more
Okay. So
sense now?
that's short. No, that's crystal clear now, at least to me. Okay. Got it. Got it.
It's not
Okay. So that's a
intuitive because it's not in any other industry. Like Elon Musk
right.
said, like you can't buy a house you don't own. You can't buy a car you don't own. Like why
Mm.
can you buy a stock you don't own? Like
Mhm,
it's like
mhm,
it seems like a scam. It's like,
mhm,
I'm gonna borrow this and make some money on it and put it back before you notice it's gone. Like
mm,
and
mhm,
banks are doing that with our money and they have been for a long time. But
mhm.
so here's the thing though.
Wait, so one
Oh,
second. So
yeah.
just to clarify, so that's the short. The squeeze then is then the opposite. So this when the trend doesn't go according to you, according to your plan. So you predict that the price is going to drop, and that's how you squeeze your margin by exchanging at the right time, so that you get the difference between how much it was worth and how much it is worth.
Right.
But the squeeze is when the price goes up, and now you have to return those shares to me, the what guy you borrowed them from, for infinitely amounts, higher amounts of money.
The squeeze is what happens when, say, it's coming up to the date I need to give you back your shares
Mhm.
and the price has gone up. I'm maybe holding it because I'm hoping it crashes. But if it doesn't, now I'm obliged to pay whatever the price of the share is. Now,
Mm.
what these hedge funds will do, because they are dealing with so much money, they'll say, oh, it's going too high. Let's buy the opposite to hedge against it, which hedge fund, that's in the name.
Oh,
So
because that's where the name comes from. Okay,
they'll
got
bet
you.
the stock's going to do well. So if it does too well, they've at least offset their losses on the short. So
Mm.
they'll buy a call to offset the short sale, or they'll just buy more stock, right? Um, And then what happens is, well, if they're all trying to do that last minute because the price is shooting up too much, that causes the price to shoot up more. When I buy more, it makes the price go up more. So I'm biting a bullet and I'm like, all right, I have to do this because it could get worse. So let's just let's do that. And then the squeeze is when they realize that, oh shit, time's up, and they buy and they start to buy those shares they're obliged to buy. The price goes up. Now, if other people are buying at the same time, the price just goes up more. So basically, if everyone knows for a fact this price is gonna go up because so many people are buying into it and there's not enough shares, they have to buy them from the people who have them, and we're not going to sell them unless they pay us a lot of money. Well, then you have a short squeeze. You're using your leverage as the people who have the stocks they need to make them pay a lot. And the more they buy it at a high price, the higher the price goes. And their losses are exponential because if that share you sold me for, I don't know, $10, right? And I thought I'd be able to sell at 8 and keep the 2 and give you, if that went up to 100, well, now I have to buy it. I got to pay $100. I lose $90 on it. Now, if it goes up to 1,000, I got to pay $990 per share.
And
What's
so this is what's happening
9,900 times 100? Because that's 100 shares. That's like one contract. Now, what if you have 1,000 contracts? We're talking millions, billions of dollars. This compounds. Right. It continues to grow. Now, if more and more people just keep buying it and keep saying, fuck you, hedge funds, I want you to bleed, I want you to suffer, and I want that money because you're stomping on a company that I love that's hurting because of something we can't control. You're profiting off their misery. You're keeping the stock price down. Because why, as an investor, would I want to buy a stock if smart people on Wall Street think it's going to fail so much they shorted 140% of the shares? Why would I buy that stock, right? Well, that's why this was unprecedented, because it doesn't make sense to buy GameStop, right? I mean, to be honest, on a purely, traditional valuation, it doesn't make sense to get into GameStop right now.
Right. It is, like you say, it's suffering because of the pandemic. It's brick and mortar. It's like the Blockbuster of video games. So yes, like it isn't a shining model of where things are going.
And it represents a better time. It represents like our childhood, like GameStop, AMC, BlackBerry and Nokia are the other two that are like the big targets. Very similar situations. But again, BlackBerry, Nokia, you laugh at that idea like that's a terrible investment. But, maybe it's not. And on an interesting side note here, I don't believe that companies should be evaluated strictly on the recent financials. Like, Nokia created a phone that the fucking world used. I mean, they were the innovators. The Nokia 3310 is indestructible. They made some great products. And, I don't know what happened in between then, but let's not discount that there's people there that were able to pull that off. And maybe we shouldn't say they're not worth anything now just because they haven't been doing well lately. And, you could make arguments like that. But at the end of the day, people know the stock should not be worth that. But they're buying it because they want to ride this wave and take that money from the hedge funds. So it's a risky game of chicken we're playing because they're smart too. And they're really, they have their hands on the rule book.
Well, now we're getting into it. I mean, but I just want to go back on one thing there. You said 140% of the stock was sold. So this is where it, along with it already being quite a confusing and unintuitive thing, like you said, selling something and then waiting for it to go down and then bringing back the shares and manipulating things in that way. But the idea of 140% of the shares being sold. So people, big funds, big hedge funds, billionaire hedge funds, were buying and selling and engaging in this trade of things that were beyond what had been issued. So 140% of the shares means more shares than existed. So they were trading nothing, basically. I mean, beyond, we all know that yes, money is an abstract concept, and you know, it's
Right.
a social contract and all this stuff. But here we're talking about something even more absurd, where you were buying and selling something that beyond being, it wasn't even issued in as abstract as it already was. Now you're talking about selling in something that wasn't even, yeah, issued by the company, by the firm that issued the shares.
Yeah, and I honestly I don't get it. Like maybe there is a good financial answer there that I don't quite understand. I know there's like the float is shares that are available for trading. There's also shares that are you know, owned by like institutional investors who can't sell them under, you know, certain stipulations on when they can sell their like there's stocks that are kind of locked up. Maybe they could
Mm,
free those up for it, or they could issue more stock. um,
mhm,
it's a weird thing though, and that's why this people caught on to that because they were like,
mm,
"Wait, this doesn't make any fucking sense." And then
mm,
that's where they saw the opportunity.
mm,
So
mm,
really, I think usually when that kind of stuff happens, it's because they think they're so arrogant. They think there's no way they'll it matters. It doesn't matter
mm.
if we sell 1,000% of it. Like, you know, we're gonna make our money. Like it's gonna go the way we think. But it's a good question. I'm sorry, I don't have a good answer for
No, no,
like
I don't
how
think
are they
anyone has an
going
answer to
to
that.
do that?
Yeah,
You know, I don't know.
it's it's the rules of the circus. I mean, I don't think there's a good answer to it. I think it's just what happened. But and as you say, so the Redditors or the Reddit investor army, whatever you want to call them, obviously, yeah, figured out that this had happened and saw the window and jumped in.
Right.
And the price has gone up, like you say. But I think there's a particular point we'll go into. Uh, is about, you said that people, it reminds them of a better time. So what do you think the main reason is actually behind these Redditors and people on these Discord forums? Why did they like jump in? I mean, I know there's the
Yeah.
absurd, they saw the absurdity, they saw this short selling, and but do you think there's more to it than that? And you know, is it all
Yeah.
about the money?
I do think there's a lot more to it than that. And there's a very unique reason that it was those shares that were chosen, I think, or those companies that were chosen. There's a to maybe make up a word, there's like a memeability there, right? There's a certain sense of humor that people who grew up using the internet, you know, like kind of the first generation to really grow up with the internet. You and I are in that generation. There's a
Mhm.
certain sense of humor that's kind of hard to put your, you know, finger on. It's kind of hard to explain it, but it's like
Mm,
the memes, you know, it's like the just the silly jokes that are made a lot. You know, that people we share this kind of unspoken sense of humor. You know, like I don't know why it's so funny, but it is, right? So because these things were memeable, right? They caught on. People got the joke, right? Like before I even knew anything about the numbers, about any of the float, about the shares shorted of it, I just thought that's hilarious if we could make Nokia stocks soar. You know, like there's just something very funny about that and like inspiring to say like we're going to take like a company everyone thinks is like extinct and we're going to show that it could be worth whatever we say it is, you know, like the value is what people are willing to pay for it. And so to me
mm,
there was some like a sliver of this is fun in that. Like a sort of mischievous like this is we're being cheeky here to use a British term. You know,
mm,
like we're being smartasses here. Let's see if we could boost the price of Nokia while we're at it. You know, like it's just funny. And I think that it started with just that kernel of it's funny as
mhm,
something that made it accessible to everyone and sort of gave us a community. That's what it is. It's like there's a community sense here that these places brought us a lot of joy. These brands, these things, we grew up with these things, right? They were part of the culture we grew up in. And now it's like just kind of fun to see them do well now. And it's
mhm,
funny to think that there's assholes losing money right now that I get to keep because they wanted them to fail. And that's mean. And you shouldn't want a company to fail, especially this time. And like I don't know that it's ethical to be profiting off of their suffering. You know, I'm all for investing and making money, but like there's limitations to the type of trades I'll make just on I guess a basic moral level that like I don't want to be rooting for people to suffer to make money, which I guess I am with the hedge funds right now. But I think that is the unifying factor, is this unspoken camaraderie we have as a global internet community, and the fact that we get that humor and the adults don't is what let this fly under the radar for so long. They didn't understand the power of the internet to spread information and ideas way faster than they could track. So before you know it, a lot of people were like on board with this idea. And when they saw it start to succeed, when they saw the people who were posting about it showing returns in the millions of dollars, that was proof that it worked. And it's math. And smart people on Reddit were like, look at this. It will work if we all buy it. Like, it's going to work. And it did. And what's amazing about that is it's as if we're one giant hedge fund that came up with an evil idea, you know, like, let's target this, stupid guy who invested in this. Let's take his money. Like, we're going to all work together and buy this at the same time. And like, they are allowed to do that. That's what they do. They find opportunities to take money from people and they collude together to do it. That's like, that's the community they live in.
You mean the hedge funds?
Yeah, hedge funds. I mean, that's why they exist, to find ways to make a lot of money. And they do it at each other's expense. So what we're doing is no different, except that we're not a company. We're not a hedge fund. We're not an organization. We're a bunch of people on the internet, cracking jokes. And that's why there's a culture behind this. And if you go on the forums, you'll see everyone saying the same thing, referencing the same things. So they'll be like, they'll all call themselves retards, right? It's a self-deprecating thing, but what it does is it makes everyone feel like it's okay that we don't understand this. Like let's just embrace that we don't know what we're doing, and let's just say, hey, we're a bunch of retards. Let's see what happens, right? To the moon, the rocket ship. That's part of it, right? My wife's boyfriend is part of it. They all say that. They'll say that all the time. They'll say, I like this stock. My wife likes this stock. My wife's boyfriend likes this stock. Like, it's just like a very specific self-deprecating shared joke. And so everyone's calling themselves retards. Everyone's wife has a boyfriend. Everybody's like holding on till, we get to the moon. YOLO.
Yes. YOLO. Hold the line. Is that also one of the
hold
references?
The line. Yeah. And there's always references to movies, and like every time it's dropping, hold the line. And before they took down the Discord server, which is back up, you could listen to live calls with all these Wall Street guys, and it was a madhouse. It was like hundreds of people.
What do you mean? Like direct calls between each other, or what?
like a big call that like there's hundreds of people on all talking at once. And you'd see this madness that sort of all was working though. This just, it was like a sense of humor, but also like this sense of unity that like we're all doing this together. We're all going to take this hit together and we're going to achieve something. And we might also get rich, right? But the priority for a lot of those people is like, this is fun. And when it stops being fun, maybe we'll stop doing it. But the more it pisses off these losers on the news, the funner it is. The more they tell us we're not allowed to do it, the more fun it is. So
Mm.
that's why it doesn't make sense to these Wall Street guys that this could possibly happen. Because it's like, oh, you beat us. It went up 50%, you sons of bitches. But they're not happy with that. It goes
Mm.
up 75%. You're still not going to sell? 100%. What the fuck? 150, 200%? It's like they don't care. They want to see how high it could go. There is no
Right.
price target. It's the
I
moon.
see.
So it's
Right.
the irrationality that broke their models. And it's the commitment and the willingness to lose it all to make a point and to have a good time that I think has ironically made everyone who did it a lot of money, unless they, did it
How
at the
much
end here.
money? I mean, so this is the one thing that I've heard people say. It's some people are still casting shade on it, and people are like, oh, it's still just for petty bourgeois, sort of middle class people with extra money to spend. It's not accessible. It's just for people that day trade. This is not something that any sort of Joe Blogs could do, or a GameStop employee couldn't buy the shares. Do you think that's true? Or I mean, it,
I
it
think it
seemed
was
more
true.
accessible than that.
I think that was true until the last really, few years, 5, 10 years. When did Robinhood come out? When did these apps and free trading become a thing? Now that you don't need to like call a broker, you don't need to like pay fees. Now that you could do it all on your phone, people can buy fractional shares now. Like you could buy like 10 cents of a share. And like
Hmm.
these open doors for everyone to participate. And so that's what made it possible for these people to do it. And the more people that do it, the clearer it becomes to everyone else. Well, if all these people say they're a bunch of retards are doing it, maybe like I'm not too dumb to do it too. And once
Mm.
you do start doing it, you realize, oh, I'm not too dumb. And then
Mm.
once you keep investing, you start to realize, oh, like I could actually learn how to be a legit investor. Like this is
Mhm.
a game I could learn to play and I'm winning it maybe. Or, like it gives you an entrance into the arena without needing to know someone, without needing backing, without needing, you can now just walk in, not even go anywhere from your bed, click, click. And so
Mhm.
that's what made this accessible to everyone.
Mm. Mm. So you said fractional shares.
Mm.
So and this is the big story right now is that Robinhood, the trading app, and various other trading platforms have all, for whatever reason, um, banned trading, stopped trading, slowed down trading, and
Yeah.
distorted things. And it's not the same game that people had started playing with. So these people that were going to the moon, the Redditors, your Joe Blogs with his $5 share, these people that were engaging, all of a sudden stuff started changing. The rules of the
Yeah.
game started changing. So what happened there? Like, yeah.
Yeah. They did. I'm glad you brought that up. So first, I'll just explain like what a halt is, right? So I trade very volatile stocks like daily. I play the ups and downs on stocks that are they're predictable, but they make a lot of movement, right? So a lot of times, if a stock's moving way too fast, like it's suspicious, like way too many people are buying at once or way too many people are selling at once, the exchange will pause it, right? They'll just put a freeze on it, usually for like a few minutes, like just to make sure like everything's on the up and up. And that's like not unprecedented. So it started with that, right? They started doing freezes, right? But then the freezes started lasting longer than usual. And that was like people were like, okay, that's just a little weird. But then it escalated big time. What happened was on Thursday, I think it was, all of a sudden you can't buy any shares. You're just not allowed. What? You're like, no, you're not allowed. The hedge funds were allowed to buy them when they don't exist, but I can't buy them. What? Right? So TD Ameritrade did it, I think, on Wednesday, right?
Mm.
They said, no, you can't buy this share. And you can't buy these select companies, AMC, BlackBerry, Nokia, GameStop, the exact ones that
The
they
ones that were
know.
the game was being played
The
on.
exact ones, we call it Bang. I almost said Blockbuster. If it was still around, that would be a good one. BlackBerry, AMC, Nokia, Bam. What's the G?
I don't know. Can't think of a company. I don't know. GameStop.
Yeah, there you go. So
Yeah.
Bang, right? They block Bang. So Robinhood, which is by far the biggest brokerage for these investors, right? This is like the main training wheels one. This is the first one a lot of people get into. That one said you're only allowed to sell. So what message does that send if you just took a risk on something that's kind of rare? I mean, you can only sell and they're looking out for me. Maybe I should sell, right? Maybe there's a reason they're saying it's very volatile. This is unusual. Like maybe I'm about to lose everything, like they're saying on the news. That this is just a big pump and dump, and unsophisticated investors like me, they call them retail investors. They're gonna lose everything, and it's not funny, right? So people start to think that, right, and they start to sell, and obviously. Um, but who's buying? If I'm only allowed to sell, who's allowed to buy? I start asking myself that, right? Well, who's left? I can't prove this, but I think it's probably those investors who need the shares to crash, to lose less money. So what do? They buy these shares, then they sell them to each other back and forth with computers at lower and lower prices, right? Artificially deflating the value. And because there's no new capital coming into the mix from the retail investor side, it only goes down. They call that, I think they call it like a ladder something. There's like all these terms for everything, but they're intentionally stopping you from buying it, allowing you to sell it, and letting them buy it and sell it. Not fair, right? Even if you're doing it to protect me, not fair. Pause it for everyone, right? But no, they did that, and they did for like basically a full day, right? After that. But then in the after hours, it shot back up. Once people could trade again, it shot back.
Once they opened it back up, okay.
And I could look at the graphs, but I think it went down like 40%, then like up like 50% after hours, or maybe it was AMC. But it was like amazing to see because it just showed, holy shit, this just backfired on them. Everybody's back with a vengeance, and there's a lot of new people coming to the table because they just heard about it since they're talking about it on the news all the time. So that was one of the craziest things they did, and they did it again today for a lot of the day. And they introduced new rules saying you're only allowed to hold this many shares. So on Robinhood today, it was you're only allowed to have like one share. If you already have shares, we won't make you sell them, but you can't buy any new ones, okay? But you're
So basically,
welcome to sell it.
so Robinhood, which was the big trading app on this, and they were basically then saying, use our platform, engage in the stock market, which is supposed to be a free market, and but now, after this has happened, they were saying, okay, you can engage in this market, but only on the rules that we set, and in a certain way. You can only buy so much. You can only trade. We've stopped the trade. Okay, we've opened the trade, but you can only buy X amount or Y amount, and you can only buy full shares now. You can't buy fractions anymore.
Yes. So it's it's not really Robin Hood. It's Robin the Hood, right? I've heard it called. I
Right.
like that. Robin the Hood.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
No longer the rich to give to the poor. Now just
I call him the
taking.
sheriff of Nottingham in some comments, like you're not Robin Hood. Robin Hood steals from the rich and gives to the poor. Right now
Yeah.
you're stealing from the poor and making sure the rich don't have to give them anything. So,
Right.
yes, what you just brought up is what I was going to get to next, fractional shares. So like I said, on Robinhood especially, you're allowed to trade in fractional shares. And that's what was a huge game changer that allowed all these people to get into the markets. Because it didn't matter how much money you put in. All that mattered was like the percentages, right? So like it didn't matter if you put 10 cents or $10,000, you could still play the game, and win relative to what you could put in. They remove people's ability to buy fractional shares. So what does that do? That stops everyone who doesn't have enough money to buy one full share from playing. Now with AMC, if it's like $9, like, yeah, you could afford $9 probably. But if it's GameStop and it's $300, $400, $500, like, not everyone's gonna
Not as
just.
accessible. Yeah.
It's not accessible. So what you're doing is you're saying no new people can buy this. Only real investors now. What does that do? It lowers the price. There's no possible way that helps the price go up. When you tell less people they can buy it, right? Then they introduced limitations to how many shares you could hold, and they changed it from 1 to 20 by the end of the day. They took off the restriction after GameStop had fallen 30%. And the news reported they upped it to 4, CNBC, but really they upped it to 20. There's so many lies coming from them. It's crazy. And they pair all that with media propaganda that's remarkable. It's remarkably consistent is what's so weird about it. You have these people talking about stocks and people they don't normally talk about, Redditors. Like, why do they care? Why are they trying to protect us from ourselves? Like, come on, give me a break. No, they're trying to sell this narrative that like a bunch of silly kids played with the stock market, almost damaged the economy, but now the adults are moving on and the market's moved past this, and everybody's going to go home and maybe they made $5-10 and they're going to just talk about this someday, but game over. Like that's the story. And they're penetrating the forums and the Discord servers. By the way, Richard, the most nefarious thing I left out. Discord is a program, if you're not familiar, where anyone can basically have their own chat room, right? And with many people can join it. And WallStreetBets has a Discord server, and I joined it. It's free; anyone could do it, and they took it down. At the same time, they blocked people from buying. That they were doing these very unprecedented things. They took down the Discord server, citing hate speech, or
really?
I don't even know if they said hate speech. They might have just said that there was content that violated their terms. That blanket phrase that can give you permission to take down anyone these days, including the president of America. You can shut him down. They can shut up anyone they want as long as there was some reason someone was offended. And Richard, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of new users joining in a day. And the moderators are supposed to be able to take down every single thing that might offend someone. Like, it's complete horse shit that they took it down for that reason. They took it down because this is a war and they wanted to disrupt comms. That's simple.
That's a. I think you've struck something important there, or something interesting there. Is that this is a war and they were disrupting comms. So they were taking down the servers, manipulating the big apps to distort prices, as you say, and everything points to sort of the ideological question that this is supposed to be a free market, a free game. This is supposed to be America, and the American dream that anyone can make it, and you have freedom of speech and all of these things. And here you had the big boys, the hedge funds, the people with their hands on the powers of lever, the hands on the levers of power. you know, closing down service in coordination with Discord, it seems, or with someone, and manipulating the biggest apps so that the prices would go in their favor.
I
So what,
also
what does
heard
that what does that what
Apple.
does that say about where does that leave sort of? I mean, I know you're not a leftist or a communist or anything like that at all, far from it. But where does that leave sort of the ideology or the ideas
Yeah.
that some of this is founded on?
I think, Richard, that's why it's so personal for me. At this point, I'm not even being a smart investor. I'm just willing to lose because it's become very personal to me. Because I did really believe that American values were a thing still. And I believe that the people we've had in charge for many years now, maybe, they've been flawed, they've done bad things, but the underlying foundation of the country was just this idea that this is a free place where everyone plays by the same rules, everyone can win, everyone's allowed to say whatever they want, and we're very suspicious of a big government trying to take too much power, so we're going to keep them in check. And all those things are being thrown out the window. And so for me, this is so depressing, but also liberating because it's proof that there's conspiracies at work to keep us poor, to keep us down, to keep us broke, to keep us from winning, to keep us from speaking, to keep us from understanding what's going on in the world. We're being fed propaganda while we're being disconnected from communicating to each other, while you're changing the rules by the minute if you want. And it's all to take money from us that this was supposed to be, and maybe still will be. I pray still will be. This should be the biggest transfer of wealth we've seen since like fucking, I don't know what what do they call it, the great after World War II or something. Like the possibility for that kind of wealth transfer is there, and it's there through the markets. The actual mechanism meant in a capitalist society meant to not equally but fairly distribute the assets, right? If you play and you win, you get some. Mm-hmm. That could be happening, and we could be making millions of dollars right now. And what would we do with those millions of dollars? Well, we'd probably invest it again, right? We'd sell some of that and we'd invest it again. And you know what? We might find another opportunity just like these. And we might make a lot of money again. We might find another one. And we might, light the fire that scares these cockroaches out. And guess what? Short selling's extinct. Not because you got a committee together and passed new SEC regulations and there was a big ethics committee hearing. That doesn't fucking work. They just adapt by the time that it kicks in and it's too late. Maybe they pay a fine that's a fraction of what they were able to save from doing it. Of course, they're going to do it again. No, this was the free market fixing an inefficiency in itself. This was the market working as it's ideologically meant to be. This is the justification for not socializing the country, is we have this instead. And yes, you're not guaranteed that you're going to have any specific level of success, but you're also guaranteed that you're not going to be stopped from any level of success. But right now, we're not getting the set level, and we are being stopped. So capitalism is broken. And I'll tell you one more thing that they're doing. The reason they care if Citadel, if Melvin go bankrupt, is they're some of their biggest customers. See, we use the app for free, no commissions. So how do they make money? Because they're a business, they're not a charity, right?
Are you talking about the stock exchange itself?
I'm talking about Robinhood, for
Robinhood,
example.
okay, sorry, yeah.
They're not the only ones who do this, but Robinhood, right? Who's their customer? It's not us, because we're not paying them, right? Maybe they make some money from us, like subscribing to news things, stuff they link us to, but really their money's coming from these hedge funds that they sell information to.
Mhm.
They sell our information to them before our trades go through. So when I place a trade, before they actually execute the order, that information zooms to these hedge funds and to their supercomputers, who then change their algorithm and tweak it based on what everyone's about to do in a millisecond. So if you know I'm about to buy this and all my friends are about to buy it, but you can buy it right before us, well, you have guaranteed income there, right? So they do this constantly, and it gives them a new metric no one else has, and it gives them an edge. And look, most people don't even know that's going on, but I knew that was going on, but I was willing to swallow that, right? Because it's free trades. You know, I was like, okay, I know they have advantages. They have a lot of advantages, but I'm okay with that as long as I can still win, right? But that's why they care. It's why they do not want them to go bankrupt, is in my opinion. Now they say it's because of like clearinghouse capital requirements, but what should have fucking happened the other day if they didn't freeze it, if they didn't do all this bullshit, and there's class action lawsuits about it already, what should have happened is the margin maintenance requirements should have increased to a point that they were forced to liquidate their assets to keep up with it. I know I'm using like jargon now, but the margin is money you're borrowing using your own securities as collateral, right? So Robinhood will let me borrow pretty much like definitely thousands of dollars if I have a few $1,000s in, right? So the reason they're willing to let me borrow it is because they know I can't just run away with it, because they could just sell the other shit I own and recoup their money. And they charge a very small interest, and it keeps me using it more. Like, it makes sense to let people use a margin. All the big brokerages do it, and the hedge funds have it too, and they're in the billions, right? So now if you're a hedge fund and you have a margin, well, they have what's called a margin maintenance requirement. That is based on the level of risk associated with certain stocks. So some, they might say you're not allowed to use your margin at all for this. Like usually like crypto, they won't let you, right? For something really risky, they might say you can only use like you can only buy like up to 5 shares on margin for this. I'm only willing to back you for that, right? But most of them, they'll let you use like as much as you want, up to the full amount of the margin. But what happens is when they change the requirements, because it's getting a lot riskier, they might say, hey, you know, we're no longer okay with you having that many shares on margin. Please sell enough to pay back this amount or deposit more money. So there's this much space between what's in your margin account. And I think that's why I call it a margin, because it's like, you know, like between, right?
Between.
Yeah. So you'd say, okay, so obviously it just got a lot riskier to own GameStop shorts, right? I mean, this is a fucking global social movement trying to fucking squeeze them for every penny they're worth. I would say it's risky. So what should they be doing? This margin should be getting tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter to the point they have to sell, or they have to liquidate their other assets. So what I projected would happen today is I thought their margins were all going to kick in because they're holding it long enough for it to fall before they have to cash out. So they're hoping people lose interest, the shares fall, they lose less money when they finally turn in their chips. Understand? So if the margin requirements would have kicked in, they would have been forced to sell either the shorts, or to buy the shorted stock, or they'd be forced to sell other assets. So maybe now you have to sell $5 billion of your Microsoft stock. You got to sell your blue chips. So now what would happen? The whole market would start to crash, and those few stocks that everyone knew that they should pile onto would skyrocket. And now everyone, that's why I say it's a transfer of wealth, because everyone in the entire economy participating would have the opportunity to take the risk to jump in. And if they could do it fractional shares, they could jump in with a little bit, and it could turn into a lot. And that could be enough to change our lives and to keep us alive while our government decides whether or not they want to give us any bailout money. So that's why I'm upset today, Richard, because
Yes.
that's what should have happened. They
Right.
did backdoor, behind the scenes shit. And I wouldn't be surprised if the government and regulators are complicit in this. But they did it, I think, to prevent a market collapse. I think we could have
Yes.
and should have seen a at least American stock market, but probably global market collapse this week. And it's okay because that's what they're designed to do. They're designed to crash and rebuild.
Mm.
Crash, inefficiency's gone, bad companies gone. It's Darwinian, but that's how our markets work. If you don't let them crash, then it doesn't work anymore. And they did that in 2007, and they're doing it again right now. They're just not officially giving them a bailout. But guess what? $1 billion loans are going out to these same guys who made stupid investment decisions.
Mm.
Who's lending them that?
Mm.
It's like collusion to the fucking
Yeah.
max.
So I mean, as you've explained there with the margin thing and how it should have gone, in your opinion, with
Margin call.
them having to sell blue chip shares to cover the margin differences, and then that leading to a knock-on effect, and then, as you say, every American using fractional shares being able to engage in this, you could have had a huge transfer of
And
wealth.
then they'd all reinvest their money in companies they fucking like.
Sure, and in their lives and whatnot. Sure.
Yeah.
But perhaps we're as good as that could be, the people with money, the people with big capital, are the ones who do control the quote unquote market, which it isn't a market,
Apparently,
as this is exposed so thoroughly. And you referenced 2007. I mean, we're all familiar that, again, the market, quote unquote, didn't happen. They were bailed out. They failed. They made terrible decisions and terrible financial products that were built on nothing, and they were bailed out.
overnight.
And here we have overnight. And here we have again,
takes them
a
a
big
year to
firm.
give us a fucking bailout, if they do.
Right, they were bailed
Overnight
out,
for Wall
and
Street.
the stimulus checks for the American people are taking months, if not, who knows how long. But that's the thing, though, is that if would the market ever actually operate on the means that you think it would? Because clearly the people who actually control it with the biggest money are paying for influence, are paying for control, or just do control it through whatever mechanisms. And so, do you think it would ever actually get to the point you're talking about?
I think we're in a place where we face a real chance of a revolution. And if it can't be done through legal means, if it can't be done through the markets, if it can't be done in any clear way, I mean, and you're still not going to give people money, and you're going to tell them they can't work, and you're going to put them on maybe an allowance, or people like me, I've been off unemployment for over 4 months because of a little fucking thing that they haven't addressed. It's like on the stack that they're going to look at it. 4 months, I got nothing. So it's like that happens to people, and I'm not even a sob story compared to so many people who are suffering right now. And so it reaches a boiling point where it's like, you're telling me there's no way I can make it in this system? Well, change the fucking system, or I leave, I move, I don't know what. But I think we're at that point. And look, we have people storming the Capitol a few weeks ago. Let's not forget, right? And we can speculate as to exactly why and who did that. And, but it's being very simplified and dismissed as like Trump supporters got out of hand. Like, okay, but maybe it was a little more than that. Maybe people are mad about a lot of things. And now that we've seen that that's possible, what if a lot of people decide to occupy Wall Street again? Because we just did by occupying the markets. That's what we're doing right now. But what happens if people start bringing guns to these occupations? I mean, that's the difference between a protest and a takeover, is whether or not people are armed and willing to kill the other people, right? So it's sad, but it's like they're creating an environment where that's a real possibility, because you're forcing people into these positions of desperation and dangling a carrot and just pulling it higher and higher. So I think that's what we're looking at as a more and more real possibility.
So now I think you've done a good job there of bringing the lens a bit wider, and identified something there that's very important. Because I was only going to ask about the anger. So where did this anger come from, particularly on this topic? So where did the anger come from against Wall Street bros, the
Yeah.
traders? Why are people who are sitting at home because of COVID taking their stimulus checks, taking a bit of their money, a bit of their savings, and going onto this GameStop thing and even holding the line and to the moon and all
Right.
this stuff, knowing that they may lose all the money, but they're doing it because they hate and really want to stick it to these people that have the wealthy Wall Street guys.
Yeah.
And why do you think that is? Why do you think they're so angry? But also, you just said, if we look a bit broader, if we look a bit wider, there were lots of angry people that stormed Capitol Hill, and of course, yeah, we can get into who were these people, what did they think, but the general sentiment is there's a lot of Americans who are very angry with the establishment being Capitol Hill and all of the people in Congress, and the establishment being big finance.
And they're
There's a
integrated.
trend there.
They
There's a
bounce
common
back
trend.
and forth.
Yeah.
They hold high level government positions, then they work at Goldman Sachs. They work at Goldman Sachs, then they hold high level positions. And it's incestuous to the point of brashness. I mean, they're not even subtle about it. And then they're gonna give you like $1 million to give a 45-minute speech. How much money are you giving me, Richard? Are you gonna give me $1 million for this episode? I mean, get the fuck out of here, man. I don't care who you are. No one's gonna give you $1 million to speak at their fucking corporate retreat, because you're a government. Get the fuck out of here. So I think there's a very justified sense of indignation. And I think that what's really inspiring here is that we've finally actually found a way to unite as a whole country, and even more than just our country. It's becoming a global thing. We're able to unite on something, and we have a common enemy here. Like, you notice no one's talking about Republican, Democrat bullshit. It's like we're all recognizing what I've been talking about for many years now, and that's that the real enemy is keeping us fighting each other so we don't notice what they're doing to all of us. And I think that this is sort of a wake up, and this is everyone saying, like, it feels good to be united again. Like right now, I feel, at least for this brief moment, that there's a sense of unity and hope and like movement, and there's mobilization, and there's results that we can watch on a graph that we did that. We can watch the people on TV trying to trick us into buying silver today, and we can be like, we did that. So it's proof that we're capable of uniting, I think. It's proof that we're capable of doing things that have never been done on a mass scale. If we simply do one thing together at the same time, we can change the world. So to me, it's like, it's proof of concept right now without the deserved results, but it's still proof that we can do this. And the fact that we've identified a clear enemy, because not that it's the individuals, no one even knows who they are, frankly. It's that, and it's a rotating door, it's people going in and out, but we've identified the enemy is greed. The enemy is people who think that they deserve to have everything just because. Why? Why do you get everything? Well, there's, I think, a very real sense of maturity that we're all experiencing together. And that's very healing and uniting, despite it being like a weird situation. And we're on an adventure together, we're on a mission together, in a war together, frankly.
That was a beautiful, beautiful thing, man. I think that's the silver lining, for lack of a better term, is that people have been shown, Americans have been shown particularly, that solidarity and working together to achieve something is possible, and that you can make the establishment shake quite easily, actually.
We just need to take a little risk at the same time.
Yeah, and in this case, in a particularly easy way, just by buying a stock online. A very easy way to shake the establishment. But I think that's the silver lining, is that it has shown Americans, that things can be achieved if people work together, and things can be changed
Yeah.
when we have solidarity
And
against the
it's
establishment.
not over. I mean, the war is still in progress, so we'll see. I mean, I might be a millionaire next time you talk to me, probably not. But no, you're right. Like everything we just said, the silver lining, as you put it, that is more valuable than money ultimately, because money is a tool. It's a construct. You know, it's something we use to function as a society, but it's not real like our connection to each other is, you know,
Mm,
and that's what we've lost because we've come to define value and worth through terms that are foisted upon us, and through metrics that aren't natural. I don't, you know, a kid doesn't look at another kid before he learns about all this stuff and wonder how much money he has and whether he wants to be his friend because of that. You know, it's like you see the person for who they are. You recognize yourself in others. And that's something that's like really powerful. I think the Mayans, like when they would say, like hello, I think their greeting was something translated to something like, in you, I see another me. You know, it's like we've lost that sense of like, it's not about me versus the world. You know, it's like, it's us together in this life. And we don't need to be competing even most of the time. You know, like there's really no reason that we shouldn't hope for us all to be okay and all to succeed and be happy. And it's not all a big zero sum game where we have
mm,
to someone else has to fail for us to win. You know, like
mm,
that's a fundamental flaw in that was instilled in me my whole life growing up. I mean, you probably see it because you're an international guy. You know people from all over the world. You might notice a trend with a lot of Americans where like we're very competitive for no clear reason, right? Well, there is a reason. It's that from day one, life's a competition. We have grades, and it's not just America. We have grades. We got to get a better grade than the guy next to us,
mm,
so our dad thinks we're smart. You know, we got to go win the sports game so that we can be valuable in our community. You know, like there's this major emphasis on competition, and it's always like first place is fucking wow, and second place
mm,
is what a fucking loser, man. God, you suck. You know, it's like it's silly that little sliver between first and second. You know, it's like I get it. There can only be one winner in these sports, but life's not a sport. Like
mhm, mhm,
distribution of assets, especially like necessities, doesn't have to be a sport. It's, you know,
mhm,
like I don't want people to go, you know, hungry so I can have more food to keep on the side. Like that's why
mhm,
it's a psychosis that we would
mhm,
govern a society this way. And that's why, frankly, Richard, I believe that the forces maintaining this control over us, it's not about the money. It's about money being a tool for control over the
mhm,
society. I think whoever's doing that isn't American. I don't even
mhm,
know if they care about what happens to this planet, but I think
mhm,
they're out there, and I think they do have a plan to keep us in check and keep us under control through the system. But we're at a time of transition, man. We're at a time where we've all been at home. We've all been thinking to ourselves. We've all been maybe realizing that, hey, life goes on without a job. You know, like life goes on without a boss and someone telling you when to wake up and where to go when. And like, you know, we're realizing like our whole identity in life doesn't have to be you know, surrounded, or I mean centered around what it is we do. What do you do? You know, it's
mhm,
like, what do I
mhm, mhm.
do? I mean, a lot of things. Like, what do I want to do? Like, it shouldn't be what do you do? It should be what can you do? You
Right,
know,
right,
what
right,
will
right,
you do?
right.
What do you want to do? That's the
Beautiful.
America I want to live in, man. I don't
That
want to live in
sounds
this America.
that sounds like a great America. But thank you very much for coming in tonight, Nico,
Yeah, my
and
pleasure,
speaking
man.
to us about this. Has been beautiful, a beautiful discussion. I think we've covered a lot of topics all around, explained finance, and then gone into sort of what America could be, which is great. But yeah, in you, I see another me. So thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you, Richard. Yeah, it was a pleasure, and I feel better now.
Okay, great, great.